A forest with no animal tracks. A diver who vanished without a trace. A prison that never fell silent. These are real locations, real investigations, unexplained signals, disappearances, encounters that rewrite lives. 10 cases where reality crosses the line. Watch carefully. Some questions follow you back. People call it the most haunted forest ever studied by American researchers. Not because of legends, but because of what cameras, sensors, and witnesses recorded there. Hoia Forest first caught international attention when US-based paranormal research groups began analyzing decades of unexplained data collected at the site. Visitors reported sudden nausea, anxiety, and the feeling of being watched the moment they crossed certain tree lines. Many described losing track of time, sometimes for hours, without realizing it. Photographs taken inside the forest often revealed shapes that were not visible to the naked eye. Dark silhouettes, human-like figures, and floating shadows appeared only after the images were developed. In some cases, researchers recorded bursts of electromagnetic activity with no natural source nearby. One of the most disturbing areas is a perfectly circular clearing where nothing grows. Soil samples show no chemical contamination, yet vegetation refuses to return. Animals avoid the clearing completely. People who step inside report pressure in their chest, ringing ears, and sudden panic. During one documented overnight study involving American investigators, motion sensors were triggered repeatedly while thermal cameras showed heat signatures moving between trees without any physical body present. No footprints were found, no sounds were recorded. The forest does not attack, it does not chase, it simply watches. And those who leave often report the same thing. The feeling that something followed them but never crossed the forest edge. Ben McDaniel was an experienced cave diver. On August 18, 2010, he entered Vortex Spring in Florida, one of the most dangerous underwater cave systems in the United States. He never came back. Ben was warned not to dive that day. The park owner refused him entry, saying conditions were unsafe. But Ben waited until the evening shift changed and slipped into the water anyway. What makes his disappearance terrifying is this: Ben's body was never found. Search teams explored the cave system for weeks. Elite cave divers went through narrow passages where a human body could not easily pass. They found nothing. No equipment, no remains, no signs of a fatal accident. Ben was an advanced diver, familiar with tight caves and zero visibility conditions. Yet investigators claimed he may have panicked and wedged himself into a narrow passage called the Peanut Tunnel. But experienced divers say this theory makes little sense. Ben knew those risks. Even stranger, some divers believe Ben may have discovered an undocumented tunnel, one that leads far deeper than maps show. Others suspect he survived longer than anyone believes, trapped somewhere no one has ever reached. The cave itself remains controversial. Several divers have died there over the years. Locals call it a place that doesn't give people back. More than a decade later, Vortex Spring still holds its secret, and Ben McDaniel remains officially missing. You can lock the doors. You can turn on the lights, but something inside this prison never left. Eastern State Penitentiary opened in Philadelphia in 1829 and was once the most expensive prison ever built in the United States. Its design was revolutionary. Prisoners were kept in total isolation, alone in their cells, sometimes for years. Silence was enforced as punishment. Guards wore socks over their shoes so inmates would never hear footsteps. The psychological damage was extreme. Former prisoners reported hearing whispers, crying, and voices calling their names long after other inmates were removed. Some went insane, others died inside their cells. The prison closed in 1971. That's when the reports began. Visitors and staff describe shadow figures moving through cell blocks, doors slamming on their own, and cold spots that appear without warning. Cell Block 12 is infamous for echoing laughter. Cell Block 6 is known for shadowy faces appearing behind bars. One maintenance worker reported being grabbed violently while alone in a locked corridor. Another claimed a dark figure followed him through the hall until the lights suddenly shut off. Perhaps the most disturbing reports come from Al Capone's former cell. Tourists say they hear pacing footsteps and whispering even when the room is empty. Eastern State Penitentiary is now a museum, but many believe it's still occupied. Not by inmates, but by what isolation left behind. In late 2016, American diplomats stationed in Havana began reporting something impossible to explain. It started suddenly. A piercing sound, a pressure inside the skull, a vibration that felt like it was coming from inside the body. Moments later came the symptoms: severe headaches, dizziness, nausea, memory loss, permanent hearing damage. Doctors were confused. There were no visible injuries, no toxins, no infections. Yet brain scans showed abnormalities consistent with traumatic brain injury. The phenomenon was soon named Havana Syndrome. What made it more disturbing was the pattern. Victims often described the same experience: a high-pitched noise or directional force that stopped when they moved away from a specific spot, a bedroom, a hotel room, even a balcony. By 2018, similar cases appeared outside Cuba, China, Russia, Europe, Washington, D.C. More than 100 U.S. diplomats, intelligence officers, and even CIA agents reported identical symptoms. Theories exploded. Some experts suggested a directed energy weapon, possibly using microwave or ultrasonic technology. Others proposed a surveillance device gone wrong. A few claimed it was mass psychogenic illness. But none of these explanations fully matched the medical evidence. In 2021, a U.S. intelligence report admitted one thing clearly: the injuries were real. The cause was unknown. To this day, no device has been recovered, no perpetrator identified, no official explanation confirmed. Whatever caused Havana Syndrome was invisible, silent to most people, and capable of injuring the brain without leaving a trace. And for those affected, it didn't just end careers, it permanently altered their lives. They didn't just die here. Some of them were executed, and according to locals, not all of them ever left. Bannack, Montana was founded in 1862 after a massive gold discovery. Almost overnight, it exploded into a booming frontier town. But law arrived much slower than greed. Bannack quickly became one of the most dangerous places in the American West. By the 1860s, the town was secretly controlled by a gang known as the Innocents. They robbed, murdered, and vanished travelers without consequences. The most disturbing part came later. The sheriff himself, Henry Plummer, was accused of leading the gang. In 1864, vigilantes took control. Over the next weeks, more than 20 men were hanged without formal trials. Some were guilty, others may not have been. The gallows stood in the open, and executions became public warnings. Bannack slowly died when the gold ran out. Today, more than 60 buildings still stand, untouched, silent, and decaying. Visitors report doors slamming with no wind, footsteps echo in empty saloons, Lights appear in the hotel windows at night, and near the gallows, people claim to hear ropes creaking, even though nothing is moving. Paranormal investigators have recorded unexplained voices, sudden temperature drops, and shadow figures inside the jail and hotel. Bannock is officially preserved as a historic site, but many believe it's something else. A town where justice came too fast, and where the executed may still be waiting. People come here expecting a roadside attraction. They leave questioning the laws of reality. Deep in the forests near Gold Hill, Oregon, there is a circular zone where gravity appears broken. Balls roll uphill. Brooms stand upright without support. People standing at opposite ends of a wooden platform suddenly change height. One grows taller, the other shrinks. This place is known as the Oregon Vortex. It was first documented in the early 1900s after a series of unexplained equipment failures during railway construction. Tools slid on flat ground. Workers felt sudden dizziness and nausea. Compasses spun without reason. The project was abandoned. Later, a mysterious structure called the House of Mystery was built directly inside the anomaly. Inside it, objects seem to defy physics. Water flows at impossible angles. People feel pressure in their ears, headaches, and a strange sense of disorientation. Scientists have tried to explain it as an optical illusion caused by tilted terrain and visual deception, but that theory doesn't explain everything. Sensitive instruments malfunction, electronic devices drain faster, animals refuse to enter certain areas, and locals report something more disturbing, a feeling of being watched, as if the forest itself is aware of your presence. Native American tribes avoided this land long before settlers arrived. According to their stories, this was a forbidden circle where the natural order was twisted and spirits did not behave as they should. The most unsettling part? No two measurements inside the vortex are ever exactly the same, as if the place is constantly shifting. In the frozen waters of the Arctic, some ships sink, others vanish. But the Bechimo did something far more disturbing. It refused to disappear. The SS Bechimo was a steel cargo ship operated by the Hudson's Bay Company. In 1931, while transporting furs along the coast of Alaska, the ship became trapped in pack ice near Point Barrow. After weeks of failed attempts to free it, the crew abandoned the vessel, believing it would soon be crushed by the ice. It never was. Days later, the Bechimo broke free, completely empty, and drifted into the Arctic fog. Over the next 4 decades, the ship was repeatedly spotted by whalers, Inuit hunters, military crews, and merchant vessels. Always unmanned, always silent, sometimes frozen into ice, other times moving freely through open water as if guided by an unseen hand. In 1969, the Bechimo was seen drifting near the Beaufort Sea. In 1974, another sighting placed it once again off the Alaskan coast. After that, nothing. Despite extensive searches, the ship was never found wrecked, sunk, or scrapped. No debris, no final coordinates, no explanation. Mariners began to call it the ghost ship of the Arctic, a vessel that outlived its crew, its company, and even its era. Some claimed approaching it caused radios to fail. Others reported strange lights inside the empty hull. Officially, the Bechimo is listed as lost at sea. Unofficially, it remains one of the longest-living maritime mysteries in American history. A ship that should have died in ice, but instead chose to wander forever. The August night of 1974 over the Chihuahuan desert was stifling and moonless. U.S. defense radars suddenly picked up an object racing across the Gulf of Mexico at triple the speed of any known aircraft. It flew at 75,000 feet, then veered sharply south, crossing the border near Brownsville. At the same hour, a small civilian plane lifted off from El Paso, bound for Mexico City. An hour later, radar showed the two blips converging over a desolate area near the town of Coyame. A brief flash, and both vanished forever. Mexican troops arrived at dawn. In a dusty basin lay the wreckage of the aircraft, and nearby, a silver disc 16 feet across, almost intact. The air hung heavy with an odd metallic tang. The first squad that approached too close collapsed without a sound, faces frozen in unearthly terror, bodies unmarked. From the north, Americans were already coming. They asked no permission. In protective suits, under helicopter cover, they hooked the disc with chains and dragged it across the border. The Mexican soldiers were left where they fell, officially due to toxic radiation. Since then, every newspaper archive in Coyame for August 1974 has vanished. Locals avoid the site. Compasses spin wildly, batteries drain in minutes, and at night, a silent, dim light sometimes glides across the sky. Herders say cattle refuse to graze near the scorched circle in the sand. Word is the disc was never fully disassembled. Word is it's still held somewhere under guard, and every measurement of its hull yields different numbers, as if the material itself breathes. The desert keeps its silence, guarding the traces of the night when two worlds brushed against each other and one stepped back. The summer of 1982 in New York was stifling and tense. Young people in identical suits and dresses darted through Manhattan streets, smiling, perfectly groomed, handing out flowers and leaflets. They invited people to a blessing at Madison Square Garden. Thousands came, some out of curiosity, some fearing for their children. That day, over 2,000 couples, many meeting for the first time, stood before the altar. Above them loomed a figure in a sharp suit, a middle-aged Korean with a piercing gaze. He sprinkled them with holy water and declared them husbands and wives. The world gasped. The Moonies were front-page news again. The Unification Church, as followers officially called themselves, had bought the New Yorker Hotel on 8th Avenue back in 1976. The massive Art Deco building became their headquarters. Hundreds of adherents lived there. Missions were planned there. On New York streets, they raised millions with flowers, candies, smiles. Parents panicked. Children vanished from colleges, returned as strangers, renouncing families. Newspapers screamed about brainwashing, a cult where the leader proclaimed himself the new Messiah. In upstate New York, in Tarrytown and Irvington, the church snapped up estates, Belvedere, East Garden. There they held seminars, weeks of lectures, songs, prayers without sleep. People emerged broken or reborn, depending on whom you asked. Much has changed since. Mass weddings moved to Korea. Manipulation accusations faded, but in the shadows of New York skyscrapers, echoes of that era linger. The hotel stands, properties unsold, and sometimes in the crowd flashes a familiar smile, perfect like in 1982. The city swallowed the cult, but never fully digested it. Fall 2019, quiet Chicago suburb. A middle-aged woman steps out of a supermarket and freezes. Across the parking lot stands herself. Same jacket, same bag, identical hairstyle. The double looks straight at her, smiles, and gets into a car with the same plates. The original runs after it, but the street is empty. Store cameras recorded nothing. These stories surface across America for decades. In 2006, a man on the New York subway saw his exact double in the opposite car, reading the same book on the same page. When the train stopped, the double stepped out and melted into the crowd. Nearby passengers confirmed they saw two identical men. On California's Highway 101, drivers repeatedly report vehicles driven by their own copies. One 2014 case reached police. A woman called 911 screaming that her doppelganger just passed her in her own car. Officers arrived. The vehicle was parked at home. She hadn't left. The internet is full of accounts. People encounter themselves in cafes, at work, in hospitals. Sometimes the double is silent and vanishes. Sometimes it speaks phrases the original only thought. Rarely, it warns of danger that is later avoided. Scientists cite optical illusions, fatigue, perceptual disorders. But too many witnesses, too exact matches, and always the same. Cameras either see nothing or the footage corrupts. They say such encounters are cracks in reality, brief moments when worlds overlap. Most doppelgangers simply look and leave, but some linger a little longer, and then the person notices their own life quietly shifting, as if someone else has already lived it for them.
If you've had a similar moment, share it in the comments. Maybe your story will be next. Like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.